All right, and welcome to our next episode of Chocobo Chasers. We are extremely excited for today's episode. We are joined today by special guest Doug Cockle, who's had roles ranging from famous projects such as Band of Brothers, Captain America, Reign of Fire, and is also known around the world as the voice of Geralt of Rivia, protagonist of the critically and commercially renowned Witcher series created by CD Projekt Red, as well as other video game titles. Doug, it is so awesome to have you on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so nice to be here. That was a lovely intro. Thank you.
I definitely may have practiced it at least a time or two before we started. So yeah, we'd love to get to know a little bit more about your experience in the video game community. We were all pretty collectively giddy when you accepted our invite on the show. And obviously you've been a staple in the video game community for quite a while. Are you an avid gamer yourself?
I really want to be. I love I love video games. I absolutely adore them. Um, um, the problem for me is largely time, and beyond that, motivation. As an adult human being, there's so many other things that are demanding my attention. It's hard sometimes just to carve out the time to do it. But I do love gaming. I love it. Since I was a kid, I had, my original gaming console was the original Atari. Well, I don't know if it was the original Atari. It was the one with the brown console, and the games that came out on it were Tanks and Pitfall and
Oh yeah.
Pac-Man. That kind of stuff came out as the same time as the um, oh, I can't remember what it's called now. But anyways, when consoles became a thing.
Yeah, I think that version of the Atari is definitely like the most well-renowned version. And obviously I think a lot of people kind of got their original gaming influence, and you kind of answered my little bit of follow-up, which were some of your favorite titles. Eric, I'll pass it on to you for the next one.
Hey, Doug. Appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you, sir.
Quick question for you. This is the one that I kind of thought up. You read about times of like big actors who turned down roles and they kind of wish they had taken that role. What's something that kind of came along in the voice acting gig over your career that you didn't say yes to that you kind of wish you might have said yes to?
Oh, to be in that position. I don't think I have ever turned down a role.
Okay.
Ever.
That's awesome.
Of any
Yeah.
kind.
Okay.
Hey man, I got kids to feed,
Yeah.
I mean, if I was in a position to turn down roles, I'd be a very happy chappy. But no, I've never had that opportunity. I'm trying to think if there's anything similar though. There have been times I've turned down jobs, not
Okay.
video games, but jobs. But the one time I can think of that I actually actively turned down a job was because I was given the script. It was a script I was supposed to memorize, and I was given the script. I think it was 3 days before filming was supposed to start, and I was teaching at the time as well. And I had told the person at the time, when I auditioned, I said, "Look, I'm a quick learner on script, but I do need time, of course." And he took that to mean I can do it overnight. And this was a script with lots of jargon, lots of industrial jargon in it. And I was just like, "No, I can't do it." I called my agent and I said, that there's no way on this good God's green earth I can do this in 3 days. So no, I can't. Sorry. And I felt really bad about it because I'm not the kind of person who, basically signs on for something and then goes, "No, sorry, I can't." But, on some occasions you just have to go, "This isn't my fault. I don't even know if it's your fault, but
Hey,
the
sometimes it doesn't
situation."
align. Yeah.
Yeah. The stars ain't aligning here, so sorry. But that's really rare. And I think most actors are like that. Most actors are, just like, "I've been hired. They're going to pay me money."
Dash, why don't you go next?
So, assuming Geralt is your favorite role you've done, what is the next favorite role that you've done?
Well, gosh, I mean, there's a sliding scale here, isn't there? Because I loved doing Band of Brothers.
Yep,
I
that's
absolutely loved
great
it.
series.
Yeah, I mean, but the reason I loved doing it was less for the work itself and more for the ideal of it. Um, I come from a military family. My dad was in the Marine Corps,
Me
so
too.
and and Semper Fi, dude. And my dad likes to say that military families serve with their military personnel, which nobody had ever said to me before. But when he said that to me, I don't know, it was about 10 or 15 years back. And I was just like, wow, I never thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right. And we don't sign up. We're, the wives do, the wives and husbands do. Um, but the kids don't. They're born into this life. Um, and so anyways, I grew up in a military family, career military officer, and my family's full of military people as well. My cousin brother, that's a long story, but he retired as an Air Force Reserve medic. So did his wife. Um, uh, oh God, my grandfather was in the Navy. Yeah, I mean the list goes on and on. Lots and lots of people in my family in the military. Anyways, I was reading the book Band of Brothers because before I was cast, I was actually involved in the casting.
Oh wow.
I was hired by one of the casting directors in London, Debbie McWilliams, to read opposite the actors uh, auditioning for the roles. I was a bit too old. I was 29, 30 when they were casting Band of Brothers, and the people they were looking at were in their um, early 20s, early to mid 20s at the oldest. So I was just a bit too old for the most of the characters they were casting for. But I was a good actor, and Debbie liked me, and so I read opposite loads and loads and loads of actors auditioning. Um, and I read the book during that process, and I just fell in love with the book. And when I was cast, it was a lovely thing. Tony Toe, the one of the executive producers of the series, the very last day of casting, I was there for the casting of a number of the major roles, like the day that they were cast. And I, as an actor myself, I was kind of disappointed. I was like, oh man, I'd really love to be part of this, but I know I'm too old for it. But I'm getting paid to be here and do this, and this is great, and it's all acting, and it's great. And Tony came up to me, I think it was on the lunch break, and he said, Doug, how you doing? Yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah. He said, listen, I know, most of these roles aren't for you and stuff, but there is this one role, Father Maloney, and he's just that bit older because he's the Catholic chaplain of the company. And I think you might be good for it. Are you interested? And I was like, hell yeah. And it wasn't a big role, but it was still kind of, in the principals list. And so I got to play that. But anyways, it was thrilling to be part of it. I loved doing the show, and I loved being part of the group. I didn't get to go to boot camp and stuff like that, but that wasn't the point for me. The point actually very quickly became, while I was reading the book, my uncle was in the 501st Airborne and jumped on D-Day. Not my uncle, my great uncle, my father's father's brother. And so as I was reading the book, and although he wasn't in Easy Company, he was in a whole different company, and Easy Company was 502nd. I can't remember. I did this before on a Band of Brothers site. I couldn't remember what company or anything. I just remember Easy Company. That's all I remember. Anyways, I just knew that my great uncle was there, and so as I was reading the book, I was like, "Wow, this is." And I'd met him. I knew him, and he never talked about it. So for me, being part of Band of Brothers was something much bigger. It was part of it. It was me somehow in some small way being part of the telling of these men's story. And it was for everybody in the cast, but for me, there was a more personal angle on it. It just felt like, I know this man, he's my uncle, and he did this, and he landed in France in a parachute and he found his company and fought his way through Europe, that was, and it became so much more personal. So yeah, you asked, that's a long story, but it's the question was, what's my favorite role beside The Witcher? And it's not the role per se, it's the involvement in a project.
No, that makes
Um,
sense.
That
yeah,
is
so
awesome.
yeah, there's lots of roles and that I've really enjoyed and stuff. But yeah, in terms of in terms of importance in my mind, in terms of my career as an actor and a person, that was it.
That is an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And that's actually kind of a good segue into my next question. So obviously you have a lot of experience in both voice acting and live action media. Is there ever a preference for you? I know that obviously you mentioned that there's not really a situation where you're turning down jobs, but is there ever a preference for you when you're thinking about your next project? Like, do you prefer voice acting over live action at this point, or the inverse, I guess?
Well, again, I have to say, I am not in a position to pick and choose
Right.
what I do. Most actors aren't. Chris Hemsworth is. Tom Hanks is. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm not at that influential level. Um, is just reframing the question a tiny bit. Are you kind of asking me what medium I prefer to work in?
Yeah, yeah. Do you prefer video games at this point, or like do you prefer the live action? Obviously, it's a lot of different prep. Just like you mentioned, like with live action for auditions, you're doing a lot of stuff at home. Compared to live media, maybe they're having you come into a studio and you're getting to have that live face to face with a lot of people. Like, is there? I guess what do you prefer at this point?
Well, I'm a big person for collaboration. I don't work very well on my own. I like people. I like being around people. I feed off other people's energy, not like a vampire in a creative way, I I I I bounce off other people's creative energy and that feeds my creative energy and I have more creative energy to give. So I prefer to work in a collaborative environment. Um, and pretty much everything I ever do is collaborative in some way, even if I'm recording from my home studio.
Yeah.
Um, there's a director on the line and maybe an engineer on the end of Source Connect or something like that. So there's almost always someone else that I'm working with. But oh God, in terms of my first and forever love is always the theater. Um, I just get such a buzz out of performing live to a live audience. I mean, I love performing. I love performing in any capacity. It's what I love. It's what I do. It's what I'm trained to do. It's what I've worked for many, many years to try and become better and better and better at. And so it's what I do. But oh God, if money were no object, because theater pays atrociously. Um, if money were no object, I would just do theater project after theater project after theater project. Because I love it so much. And it's not just the performance itself. I mean, one of the things I love most about live theater is actually the rehearsal process.
Yeah.
It's the getting into a room with a bunch of other creative people, directors, designers, other actors, sound designers, lighting designers, set designers, everybody working towards a common goal. And in the rehearsal process, you mess it up. You find out what works, and you find out what doesn't, and you throw mud at the wall and see what sticks. I know it's an old metaphor, but it works. Um, and I just love that process. And you can have such a laugh and such pain as well. I, you know, I've walked out of so many rehearsals just going, "Oh my God, the director must hate me. They must wish they hadn't cast me now." But that's all part of the joy of the process of finding this thing called a play or whatever you want to, whatever it is that you're working on.
Right.
It's that the joy of that process. And then, and then the lights go up and there's an auditorium full of people and you got to make it happen. And God, that's exciting. And if you mess up, you got to fix it live in front of an audience, and if you, yeah, it's just so thrilling. I love it.
Dash, I'll pass it on to you for the next one.
All right. So how exactly did you get into voice acting? I'm looking at your IMDb, and your first accredited role was from RuneScape in 2001. So
Yeah, that is such a lie. That is, I believe, the year that RuneScape started. It has nothing to do with me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I recorded for RuneScape in 2017.
Yeah,
Oh,
I was gonna
wow.
say, I'm thinking back to when I was a kid playing RuneScape. I don't remember any voice acting, at least back then.
No, it was RuneScape back then was pixelated. There were no voices. It was that 16-bit audio thing going. No, I wasn't doing Rune. No, I think that is just literally, that was the year the RuneScape was
Yeah.
first published or something like that. Yeah, I started doing video games in 1999. And it was a complete fluke. I was never trained for video games. I was never trained for working on microphone. I was only briefly trained for working on camera. So I was a theater trained actor. That's the way all actors were trained at the time I was trained. Still are to a certain extent. There's a lot more camera and microphone training now. But yeah, I had none. So in 1999, for reasons that we'll just leave out of this conversation for the time being, just because of available time, I moved to the UK, which was stupid at the time because everybody I knew and all the systems I knew, everything I knew about the acting industry was in the US. But I had an opportunity to come to the UK, and I was like, yeah, why not? So I came over here and talked myself into a job at a theater. And through that, met an agent. And this agent called me up a couple of weeks later. She didn't know what to do with me. I'm an American in England. What do I do with you? I don't know what to do with you. But she kept in touch, and she called me up one day and said, Doug, there's I was working in York, which is up in the north of England. And she called me up. She said, Doug, there's a video game voice production studio casting in Harrogate, and it's not too far from you. You want to take one of your mornings and go over and audition for them? They're interested in seeing you. And I was like, oh, okay, video game. I like video games. Yeah, sure. I didn't even know they did voices in video games. So I went to this audition, and it was my first time ever really working like that on mic. I had no idea what I was doing. I went into the studio and I did my thing and got the call a couple of days later. I got the lead role in this video game. It was a video game called Independence War 2 Edge of Chaos. And I was cast as Cal. Sorry, my voice is a little bit
Oh, you're good.
It's all right.
not my
Yeah.
own. I've been on some medication recently for a thing, and it slightly affects my voice. So I got this lead role, and that was kind of it. But it was a weird one because at the time in 1999, voices in video games were practically brand new. They hadn't really been a thing before. So I was right in there on the ground floor. But unfortunately, as well, I'd go to castings and stuff for TV and film, and they'd go, they'd ask me, "Ooh, what have you been up to?" I'd be like, "Oh, I just did 3 video games." And like, "Oh, right." And the implication clearly was, "Oh, that's not real acting work."
Mm.
And some of my acting friends would say, "Oh, I just did a, voice in a video game. It was really cool." And to me, it was really cool. I loved
Yes.
video games. I was just like, this is cool. I'm getting paid to do this thing I like to do, and I'm learning about how to do, and it was all cool. But the industry they didn't really see it as real acting work. So I tended that work that I was getting paid for was being dismissed by the people who I wanted it to impress. I was just like, oh man, but it was paying my bills.
Yeah.
So I couldn't turn it down. But gradually over the years, it's been interesting because, it's just like, we know now how important voices are to games. And every actor I ever meet, I've done quite a bit of teaching over the years as well. And gradually over the years, more and more people are like, Doug, how do I get into voice acting for games? And I'm like, I don't know, because I just kind of accidentally did it. And the industry is so different now. I don't even know if I could get in now. Um, so yeah, it's everybody wants to be a video game actor. Everybody. And even the A-list celebrities want to do games. It's like, wow. Hey man, leave some for the rest of us, or give me the Matrix. That's not a snub on Keanu, right?
Okay.
Keanu's cool.
We'll,
He's all
we'll
right.
make sure to jot it down. Doug hates Keanu
Yeah.
Reeves.
I don't at all.
All right. I think we've got time for one more question each. Definitely want to make sure we're fitting everybody in here. Eric, why don't you choose one?
Okay, so a little earlier, G had asked you a question. You talked about how much you thrive and love group work.
Yeah.
So my question is, like, is there anybody specific in the industry you look up to that was kind of your inspiration for this,
For video game voice work?
or just in general? Like, who was the person that made you want to be an actor, or who's had the biggest impact on you? We can do it that way if you want to.
That is there is such a multifaceted answer there. There was an entire cast of Les Mis on stage when I was 19, I think.
Mhm.
There was a point I originally went to college as a pre-medicine biology major, and I was going to be a doctor. I was going to save the world. And then I didn't do so well in chemistry, and I was reevaluating my choices. And had I been a different kind of person, I would have just stuck it out and retaken chemistry. But no, I kind of asked myself, well, where do I see myself in this many years' time? And I didn't see myself in a white lab coat. And the only thing I'd ever really loved was acting. I loved to do. I chose medicine as a career, as a job to make a difference in the world. I never saw acting as the same kind of thing. I do now, but I didn't then. Anyways, tying this back to your question, I think having seen that production of Les Mis helped me make the decision to change my major in college. And then influences along the way. I mean, so many great influences. Harrison Ford. I just fucking sorry. I hope this
Oh,
is.
yo,
No,
this is a
no,
not safe
no.
for work
You
show, so
can say
you're
whatever
totally
you want,
fine.
man.
I just fucking love Harrison Ford. I've always loved him. I think I saw him first in the very first Raiders of the Lost arc. And I just loved his character. And, gradually over the years, I got to know the actor. And as I got to know the actor, I came to understand the work that he puts into his roles and everything. Oh, and then Star Wars. No, the first role I ever saw him in was Star Wars.
How could you forget?
Freaking hell. Star Wars. I was like, I don't know, 7 or 8. And my cousin took me to see Star Wars. And it was double bill. They used to do this double bills. And it was Star Wars and Every Which Way But Loose with Clint Eastwood. I mean,
Mhm.
7 years old, I was watching Every Which Way But Loose with Clint Eastwood. I don't know how I got into that. But anyways, it was, and I remember I was 7 years old, and I thought the woman, I can't remember her name in the film or the actress now, but I can see her face, and she was so cute. But yeah, Harrison Ford, Tommy Lee Jones, I've always loved. Oh God, Meryl Streep, Susan Sarandon. Um, uh, I've always loved actors for their acting, not for their gender or for the types of roles they play, but for what they bring to the character, for the feeling that they give me watching what they do. I didn't grow up on theater. I think I saw a production of Brigadoon when I was 10 or 12 or something like that. I saw my sister in a play. I always use this as a thing that made me want to become an actor. I didn't at the time, but I think it was an influence. My sister was in a play when I was about 10 or 11 years old, and she kept getting these great laughs from the audience. And I was like, damn, I want to do that. Completely narcissistic. I just wanted people to laugh at me, but I think I'd always had that kind of performer instinct in me. My mom always said I did. So I became an actor. And then when I started really looking at actors in film primarily, I started kind of analyzing performance, and then I gravitated towards the performers who I felt, wow, that was amazing what they just did. So yeah, I've named a few, but there are many, many more. And people sometimes ask me, who would you want to work with now? And God, the list is endless. But
yeah, I mean, and obviously the acting stratosphere is full of so much talent now, especially like today. And so I think it's pretty easy to see that there's a lot of influence that you can kind of take from, I mean, obviously you mentioned it yourself, like starting with Star Wars all the way up till now. So this could be, I guess, voice acting or live action, either or. Who, and this may be a multi-answer question. What would you say has been your favorite studio to work with so far in your career? Just as far as like your entire experience goes.
My favorite studio to work with. Well, that's a hard question to answer in some ways because I don't work with studios.
Right.
I work for the studios, but I very rarely work with them. I tend to work with voice production studios who are hired by the developers to help cast, and then direct and deliver vocal performances. And I wouldn't want to say which one of those I prefer to work with because I'd be shooting myself well in the foot.
No, definitely makes sense.
I mean, I actually do enjoy working with all of them. There's not a single vocal production studio that I've worked with that I haven't enjoyed working with. I have to say though, in terms of developers, I have really enjoyed being associated with CD Projekt Red, not just because of The Witcher, but because I genuinely feel that as a not that other developers aren't, but I just genuinely feel that CD Projekt is, as they say, for the player.
Yeah.
They want, they want their games to be as good as they can possibly be. Have they been perfect at that? No, of course not. No developer has. But I genuinely feel every interaction I've ever had with them, I feel they've been well above board with me, and they've tried as hard as they can to be well above board with their fans and their players. And I respect that. So I've really enjoyed that. I've worked with other developers as well. Like I said, I mostly work very indirectly with the developers. But I've worked with some indie developers who I've really enjoyed working with as well, just for their spirit.
Yeah.
Their wonderful, creative, energetic indie spirit. And I've met some fantastic individuals as well. So I think that's my answer to that question. By the way, guys, just so you know, I'm not like absolutely tied to 30 minutes. I'm good for time.
Okay.
So if you want to go a bit longer, I'm cool with that. If you want to shut this down as well, that's fine too.
We're
So I
good
just
as long
wanted to-
as you
No,
are. So
we were
I just
trying
wanna-
to go off your time.
yeah, we're just wanting
yeah,
to
I'm
make
good.
sure.
I just saw that you'd kind of scheduled it for 30 minutes, and I was like, well, that's fine. If I don't know what your format is, if it's like, 30-minute max kind of conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm cool to go another, half an hour if you want to.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
sure all 20 of our listeners won't be disappointed.
That's how it starts, though. No, that's very, very kind of you. Thank you, Doug. Dash, why don't you go next to you?
So it's no secret that The Witcher 1 is being remade. So are you at liberty to say that you're involved with that, or are they just going to reuse the dialogue that they used from the original game, or?
I am at liberty to say whatever I like, and I know absolutely bugger all.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm sure once I do know something, I won't be at such liberty. But yeah, I know as much as you do.
Okay.
Sadly, I'd like to know more.
I'm sure the project is all, I think they announced it pretty early just to give fans like a sneak peek into obviously what's going on at CDPR. And so,
Yeah.
I would
Gameplay
imagine,
wise, it didn't
yeah.
age the best either.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
a remake would be well loved.
Yeah,
think-
well, and they've outsourced it to another company who they've licensed to remake Witcher 1.
oh wow.
So that'll be exciting to see what where they take it. I mean, I'm sure they'll take it in a direction that's fully backed by CD Projekt. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I have all kinds of thoughts about the Witcher 1 remake. Um, will they reuse the dialogue from Witcher 1? I don't know. I doubt it. I don't think that would work. It's so I mean, the audio files themselves are so old now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can get much better quality recordings now than they could when they recorded that in 2005.
Yep.
So I don't know. And will they retell the same story? I don't quite see how they can. I mean, I think I don't know. I'm totally up in the air, man. I just hope that I get to be part of it.
We all do.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
collectively hoping for that as well. Eric, why don't you go?
All right. So this goes back to like live action stuff. What's your favorite spot you've ever gotten to film in?
Ooh, favorite spot I've ever gotten to film in. God, there've been so many really good ones. Okay, well, I'm gonna mention two because yeah. Okay, the first one, I was in a film called Reign of Fire
Yep.
with Christian Bale, Isabella Scorupco, Matthew McConaughey, Gerard Butler, and I played Matthew McConaughey's right-hand man, his communications officer. And the filming was done largely in a studio in Dublin, Ireland, but a lot of the filming was done out in the Wicklow Mountains, just south of Dublin, and in the Wicklow Gap, which is like a pass through the mountains. And they had built this amazing castle into the side of the hill, and it was one of those amazing, set pieces where, from one side it's this incredible medieval castle, that you see in the film, and from the other side it's a bunch of scaffolding holding up a whole bunch of fantastic artwork. But it wasn't that made it really cool. It was that beautiful area. The Wicklow Gap is just gorgeous. And my wife came over for a couple weekends, and on the weekends we would hire a car and drive out to the Wicklow Gap and go walking. And it was just a beautiful place to be. And because the castle was literally built into the hillside of the Wicklow Gap, when we were shooting all those scenes outside the castle and various other places in the film, it was around you had this beautiful panorama of this Irish mountainside. So that was one that was beautiful. And the other place, and there were multiple locations for this. I did a documentary TV series called Conquest, and it was for the History Channel. And I was just one of the plods on the shoot. It was Peter Sorry, I'm in a bit of a anesthetic fog at the moment. Literally anesthetic. I had surgery 10 days ago, so I'm still kind of getting the anesthetic out of my system. I keep forgetting names. It's the weirdest thing. Anesthetic. Have you guys ever had surgery?
Mm-mm.
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about then, where you just kind of for like 2-3 weeks afterwards, you're just kind of like, oh, geez, I can't remember what that. I'm trying to remember. You know what I mean? Your memory is just kind of
I think
fuzzy.
that's just life for me in general now.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Anyways, this lovely guy, he was heading it up. So it was all a documentary about arms and armor throughout the ages, and so he was the talking head, and he'd hired a bunch of us who were really experienced in stage combat to be the guys beating each other up in the background and talking about what it felt like to wear the armor and all this stuff. Well, he hiked for the second series. He hiked us all to the south of France, and there were just some gorgeous locations down there. A Colosseum, a Roman Colosseum in Nîmes. And I cannot remember where this place was, but there was this whole area of France that we drove through, and then we did this whole sequence up on this hillside in this village. And all the rock formations were like somebody had blown bubbles up through the earth. And there were like, caves and stuff like that through all this stuff. And it was like an alien landscape, and it was just amazing. And there I was standing there in a full suit of armor, sweating my tits off. But the view outside of my helm was quite nice.
Definitely gonna have to look for this episode after we finish recording today.
Yeah.
Dash, I'll hand it over to you, man.
So when you started The Witcher 1, obviously the gaming community and probably CD Projekt Red, they were much smaller than what they are now. Did you ever think that it would grow into what it became now, with Witcher 3 being the game of the year that came out and regarded as one of the best games of all time now?
No clue at all.
How's it feel to be part of that?
Amazing.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel incredibly blessed and honored to have been. I was debating whether to say taken on this journey or allowed on this journey, or to just be on this journey. It has been a journey, and it's a journey that not every actor gets to experience. When I originally auditioned for The Witcher, it was a series of books in Polish and I think one or two other Eastern European languages.
Yep.
I knew nothing about. I knew nothing about the Polish TV series. And frankly, like so many of these jobs, it was just another job, a cool job, but just another job. And I don't mean that to disparage any job, but it wasn't The Witcher 3. I wasn't walking into Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right.
I was walking into another game with a set of given circumstances and a world that I needed to understand. And my job was to bring this character to life in this world. And that's all it was. And I was excited to be part of it, and I was getting paid as an actor, and and that's all thrilling. But like I said, it wasn't it. If I had not been part of that journey and I had known about The Witcher and I'd been cast in Witcher 3, I would have been absolutely jumping off the ceiling. But that's not my experience of The Witcher. My experience of The Witcher, I went into a little game being produced by an independent developer for whom this was their first game. And I knew nothing about the history of the game. The developers had to explain everything to me. I did my job. I enjoyed my job. I walked away. And then Witcher 2 came up. And there's a whole story there. Because I almost wasn't in Witcher 2, but I was in the end. And Witcher 2 was like this, okay, so this developer liked what they did, but now they're going to push this boat out further because they had rewritten, they developed a whole new engine for the game. They had redeveloped the characters, the images, and stuff like that. They'd they just done tons of work to kind of really just explode the envelope from what they'd done on Witcher 1. And I think it was about, well, I remember doing DLC for Witcher 1, and one of the guys from CD Projekt, I was talking with him, and he was all excited, and he was, he was talking these big ideas about the nature of interactive media, and the how to engage a game audience in something more strongly, more deeply. And he had all these ambitions and ideas, and I was just like, oh, dude, you're talking my language, but I don't know how you're going to do that. And then Witcher 2 came along, and I was like, okay, I see kind of what you're talking about. There's definitely more depth here, and there's these storylines are, wow, these are interesting, and the trees are, and all that stuff. So, Witcher 2, I started to kind of get an inkling of where they were going with this stuff, and I knew there was going to be a Witcher 3. I knew that they had plans for a Witcher 3 to exist, but I had no idea how big it was going to be, and I didn't until it had already come out. I mean, I knew it was going to be a good game. I knew it was going to be a big game, but what it became was something that I could not have foreseen. And it took a journalist coming to find me in 2016, autumn of 2016, I think it was. Yeah. Took a journalist from Eurogamer coming to find me and do an interview with me. And he basically said, Doug, you got no idea how big this game is, do you? I said, no, I don't. Why? How big is it? And he kind of took me through some of it, and I was like, oh gosh, it is big. Okay. And this will make more sense when I tell you that I was teaching acting at university. I was actually running an acting course. So I wasn't just teaching acting, I was managing a group of teachers teaching acting. And I was kind of the artistic director of all the shows we did. And I was, I was hiring and getting people in, and I was really, really busy. And I had, every year I had over 120 students at 3 levels. University is you have 3 years of university here in the UK.
Yeah.
So I had 3 years of students I was looking after, and 15 staff, 6 or 10 of them full time, and then a bunch of part-time staff. I was busy, and I'd been doing this since 2004. So the entire time I was recording The Witcher and other games, I was also teaching full time and managing a course. And so I just wasn't looking. I wasn't looking at reviews. I wasn't looking at Reddit forums. I was freaking busy, and I was still doing other games and enjoying it all. But then, this journalist, and it was crazy. Another journalist, a media journalist named Julia Hardy. She at one point, she said to me, Doug, you're so naive. You just have no idea how big The Witcher is. You don't have any idea, do you? And I just looked at her, and she was like, oh, I'm going to have to educate you. I went and got a grilled cheese sandwich, and she educated.
That is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. I would say you probably laid the foundation. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, Dash, go ahead. Sorry,
I would say you probably laid the foundation for the inspiration for what Henry Cavill did with the Netflix Witcher series too.
Well, he has very generously given me some credit for how he chose to vocalize Geralt. Bless him. What a generous thing to do. I mean, he's famously a huge fan of the games and of the books. So yeah, I'm not surprised that my work may have influenced some of his choices. But good Lord, the man made it his own, didn't he?
He's
Mhm.
great. It's sad
Yeah.
again to see
Yeah.
him go.
We're sad to see him go. Just
Yeah, I am too. I'm very sad to see him go. I'm excited to see what Liam does. You know, bless him, he's got some big shoes to fill. Not that he has to fill Henry's shoes; he's going to do his own thing as well. But you know, there are a lot of expectations being placed on him, so it's not an easy position to be in. But I'm excited to see what he does, and I wish him all the best. So I'm going to watch season 4 and see what he does.
some guys, do you have any other follow-up questions or anything else you wanted to ask?
Can we get a winds howling Geralt quote for the pod?
Winds howling.
Yes, sir.
Now, if you're still on the path, good luck on that path. And hopefully you'll get roached down off the roof sometime soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that one.
Oh my
Doug,
god.
thank you.
So
That is
amazing.
so awesome. Doug, before we finish today, I also wanted to ask you, is there any other projects or anything you wanted to shout out that you wanted, people to be on the lookout for?
Most of the things that I've been working on recently are under NDA, so I can't really talk about them. But something that did come out recently that I'm quite pleased with. I hope that other people are. There's a game called Hunt Showdown.
Oh yes.
Oh,
Yes.
dude, I love Hunt.
Yeah. Well, in the newer release, I don't know all the ins and outs of this, but basically, I'm your John Victor. I'm your tutorial guide.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So yeah, if you play Hunt Showdown or if you haven't played it before and you want to try it out, I'm
It's
the
on
guy.
sale.
Is it? Yeah.
It's on
There we
sale
go.
on Steam, 60% off. I think. Yeah, it looks
There
like.
we
Excellent.
go.
Oh, it looks like a great. I haven't played it myself yet. I keep meaning to. But yeah, I'm your John Victor, and I was quite. It was fun because I auditioned for it, and they had everybody auditioning do a basically a Cajun accent, and Cajun is not my native accent, obviously.
I'm from
Um,
Louisiana and I can't even get it down, man. Those people are a different breed.
Well, I kind of just went for what I mean. I did a lot of research on YouTube and stuff, and I did part of my growing up in Virginia, so some of the southern kind of cadences and stuff like that. I kind of grew up with, but there's so many different southern cadences. There's so many different southern accents. So I was like, well, I'll give it a go, and I gave it a go, and then they cast me, and I was like, no way. So I had a great time going in and working with the writers and some of the developers, and I recorded John Victor, and he's out there now. And I just, I had a great time recording him. So I hope you have a great time learning from him.
Sounds amazing. Definitely pick up Hunt Showdown if you can. Like Dash said, it's on sale, 60% off on Steam. So there's no reason not to, really.
I might pick it up now.
You can follow Doug on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll be sure to post links to each. Also, you can find him on Cameo with a perfect 5 out of 5 rating on over 600 requests. If you have a friend or a loved one who's a Witcher fan, what better way to send them a special message than to do so in the voice of your favorite monster slayer? Doug, it really has been truly an honor. We appreciate you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. And we're so excited to see what you've got lined up for the future. And we wish you the best.
Oh, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to talk with you guys, and to all the video game fans out there. Just keep playing, enjoy, have fun.
Oh yeah.
All righty.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it, dude. It means a lot.
Biggest honor ever.
All right, folks. And with that, we will call it good.